evening, everyone. Welcome to the weekly discussion series that's hosted by the Chaldean Cultural Center in collaboration with U of M Detroit Center, Unique Voices in Films, and CMN TV. And today we have a special program. It's a 1-hour program. We have 4 beautiful women from Wisdom, Women's Interfaith Solutions for Dialogue and Outreach in Metro Detroit. Yes, I had to read that. I cannot.
I'm glad.
I met the founders years ago, a couple of the founders, Gail Katz and Trish Harris, and we just connected and I became a member, and I am so happy that these women are here today. They are going to be each speaking about their backgrounds and introducing us to a new culture and different faiths. And at this point, Paula Drewek, am I saying it right, Paula? She's going to introduce this forum, which they have regularly. And they were supposed to actually have it at the Chaldean Cultural Center, but due to COVID, we are having it online. Thank you, ladies. Go ahead, Paula.
Thank you very much, Wiam. Wisdom is very happy to partner with the Chaldean Cultural Center. We became a 501c3 in 2007, and I've been on the board since then. And this that you will see tonight with 4 instead of 5 is our signature program, 5 Women, 5 Journeys. And it is meant to develop relationships with the other. And that's part of the purpose of our Wisdom group. We try to educate the public and ourselves about our differences, and in the spirit of friendship and love and safety. We also do service projects in the community, and we are strictly Detroit focused at this point. We have a newsletter and a book to carry on our idea of friendship and faith, which is written by these 52 women. So this is available on Amazon if you need to look it up sometime. We have a format of 3 questions. Each respondent will have 3 minutes for each question. I will serve as moderator, telling you what the questions are, as well as a Baha'i respondent. So let us begin. We're going to start with, how has your childhood experience of faith influenced where you are now in your practice, your ideology, your thinking about your faith community? So we'll start with Sameena, please.
Thank you so much, Paula, and it's an honor to be here with everyone today. I'm a Muslim, and I was born in Warren, Michigan, and I grew up in Sterling Heights. I would say my childhood was impacted by my faith in terms of a lot of sights and sounds and flavors, and just remembering my mom's kitchen and like the Eid celebration. She would make this huge pot of, milk. It's called sheer khorma. It was like a really sweet, with sticky dates floating at the top, and toasted almond nuts. And I remember getting, and she would spend the entire night, because you're supposed to wear brand new clothes, for the holiday in the morning, and we would go for prayers, and she would literally, because back then, this is, we're talking, mid 70s, right? I'm dating myself here, but there weren't any like Indian stores to buy the fancy dresses and the costumes, and that's what they were used to back home in India. So my mom would literally sit with her sewing machine, and she would be up the entire night hand sewing our Eid costumes. So I think as a kid, I didn't appreciate that at all because I'd be like, Mom, I don't like this color. I would be like a little brat about it. But now thinking back and having my own children, and to just have that, love and passion and wanting to transmit your faith and your culture, to your kids, just to do that by hand was pretty amazing. And then my dad was really, he got involved in, you know, sort of community building and mosque building. When we were about 5 or 6, I think they realized they were freaking out. They were like, how are we going to transmit this faith? There's no like place of worship. Like we used to meet in people's homes, and we used to just, you know, get together for dinners and things. And then slowly, you know, they acquired some property, and they would have all these serious meetings. You know, my mom would be like making tea and stuff, and she's like, shh, you guys go upstairs, they're having a board meeting. And so like my earliest memories are just, you know, a lot of community organizing, and I'm really proud of them. I feel like, you know, they came from so many different circumstances, and they came to this country with like basically nothing, and they just worked really hard, rolled up their sleeves, and they built this community that, you know, we've inherited. And I'm just, yeah, I'm really grateful, and I hope that we can even transmit a fraction of that to our kids to live that legacy. But yeah, that was my childhood and faith. Oh, Paula, you're on mute, sorry.
Thank you so much. Dolores, would you like to follow up with Sameena there?
Yes, I'll go ahead and follow up. Okay, and also, thank you for having me. Namaste. I always say that I was marinated, battered, and deep fried in religion. Okay, I was born and raised in the Black Christian Baptist faith. We were 24/7 church. Okay, Sunday morning was, of course, church all day long. Sunday school to night services. Tuesday was choir rehearsal. Wednesday night was Bible class. Thursday night was usher board meeting, and then Friday, then Saturdays, you spend your time getting ready for Sunday, and then the cycle begins again. In between time, you know, there was always some sort of religious programming on radio or music or something going on in the house. I was raised up with, we'd have devotional hours at 7 o'clock after dinner. My mother would get on the piano, and she would sing a hymn. My brother would do, or I would read a verse of the Bible. He'd do the prayer, and she'd do a little sermonette, and then she'd close out with us singing, and you know, the hymns or whatever. And yeah, I was just, you know, 24/7 church. Now, with all that said, okay, my mother was extremely open to all religions. So Mr. Cross, who was a Jewish fella, he lived across the street. So I did Shabbat with him. My girlfriends, Angela and Lorraine, lived next door to him. I'd be at catechism with them. I'd be at the Muslim center down the street, because my mother was the kind of person, if you said God, you believed in God, she didn't care. She'd send me off to church with you. And then on the Sundays, on the days we weren't in church or, you know, some sort of church activity, we studied with the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Seventh-day Adventists, Jehovah's Witness, Seventh-day Adventists, and then there was another group called Jesus Only. And my mother was curious as to what they were about, so we go and sit in their services. We'd be at spiritual centers, spiritualist centers, everything. It was just, you know, it was 24/7. So anyway, as I grew older and started to question things, and you know, never that I lost any type of faith, okay? I didn't lose faith in God. I just questioned the tenets of the teachings. And, you know, that really wasn't answered that much. So life goes on. And a lot of the things I was taught, I couldn't apply, because we were fire and brimstone, okay? So I could not apply that to what was happening in my life. So I kind of started venturing out and looking at other religions. So I kind of went into the New Thought, wisdom, teaching, metaphysics, and that kind of thing. And I ended up at a Science of Mind church, came back to Detroit. And since there are no Science of Mind churches in Detroit, then I kind of went to Unity, which is really close. And we went into a meditation, and meditation was just awesome, you know, and I didn't want to come out. And so Am I flowing okay? Because it looks like it says mine. Okay. So anyway, I didn't want to come out of the meditation. So that night I had a dream. Okay. And it was a dream of Jesus walking with his arm around this little guy. And Jesus was slapping his knee and laughing and laughing. I'm thinking, who is Jesus talking to? And so Jesus kind of saw me over his shoulder and he started teasing me. So they started running and he laughed and and I'm thinking, Jesus, who are you talking to? And so I'm trying to catch up. And finally I caught him. I said, Jesus, who are you talking to? And he says, I want you to meet my friend Buddha. And it's like, oh. And I woke up and it's like, I'm supposed to go to a Buddhist temple. Been Buddhist ever since. So that's kind of like my experience. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, well, I think we got the idea, even though you broke up a little during the.
Did I break up? Yes, telling me. Okay.
But Teri, you're next. Teri's Jewish. I forgot to announce the religions. Teri is Jewish, and she will explain something about her childhood and youth.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Wham, and thank you to the Chaldean Cultural Center, which I have been to, and it is lovely. So I so appreciate being here. My childhood had some similarities to Sameena's as far as it being very food-based. Jewish people, we like to eat a lot, and any kind of event we have, any celebration at all, is food-based. Even when somebody passes away and we call it a shiva, it's like a wake, there's food. And in fact, I remember when my kids were little, they didn't know what a shiva was. They just knew that when we went, there was always good food. And one time my daughter walked in and screamed, I'm hungry, as we walked into the shiva. So, I mean, Jewish people, we have a lot of cultural traditions that do move around food. When I was growing up, my grandparents would always celebrate all the holidays with the whole family. And we would get together for meals, because again, food. We would play games. We'd spend the whole day. So it was really a nice way for all the kids to be together, for the siblings to be together, for us to spend time with our grandparents. My grandparents really enjoyed having family. My grandpa really was the patriarch of the family, and he really liked bringing the family together. And he really liked being around Judaism. Although they weren't real religious, like I said, socially, they were religious. Now, I actually did go for formal education. My mom had not. I went to Hebrew school Tuesdays and Thursdays and Sundays, and I was bat mitzvah. So my brother was bar mitzvah. What that is that around age 12 or 13, you become a Jewish adult, and you actually go through a very formal religious service where you learn Hebrew, which is very close to Aramaic actually, and you have to learn to chant, and you have the Torah, which is basically the Old Testament, in front of you, written in Aramaic, and you have a pointer because you're not supposed to touch it, because the oils from your hands could damage it, and you read it and you chant it and you memorize it pretty much, and then you also run the service. So it's really the first time that you're in front of your congregation and your friends and your family becoming, an adult. And I always say, other than my wedding, it really is one of the most special moments of your life, because it's about you embracing your religion and agreeing to the tenets of your religion. What I think is really beautiful about religion is it usually is teaching you all the good things. I mean, certainly the Bible, the Torah, there's some tough stories, but they teach moral lessons, and it's you agreeing to take on that moral fiber. And also you do a project associated with your bar bat mitzvah, and our daughters were bat mitzvah. So it's really an important family tradition to us. It's the most religious aspect of being Jewish for us, because mostly it's gathering and eating.
Well, I think we can all relate to that, Teri. And I had moments of recognition when Sameena was talking about the meetings in their home, and Dolores was mentioning learning songs with her mother playing the piano. I was raised in Kokomo, Indiana, in a mostly Baha'i family. My dad for a while was Christian, and so I had that dual upbringing, but frankly, we had no Muslims and very few Jews. And so it was a mostly Protestant community I was raised in, and I was steeped in that with going to church with friends and so forth. But I think the template for our growth and development really is established in those early childhood years. And my mother did that because she taught us the prayers that we recited every night before bedtime. And she sang songs with us at the piano. And so that led to then becoming finally ready to go to a Baha'i group, which we called Luhallan Baha'i School. It was near Flint, and I remember going there as early as age 9 or 10. And that was my real experience of Baha'i, because there were lots of Baha'is. We were one of very few Baha'i families in Kokomo, and there weren't really any kids my age. So this was great. But we had people who were from the East, because Baha'i began in Persia. And so we always had Persian immigrants in our collection, our groupings, and Blacks, of course. And so I was exposed to this, as well as in our home, because of being one of very few Baha'i families in Kokomo. People would come and they would stay with us, and they would come and speak. And so religion was carried on in the home through prayers, songs, and of course at this Baha'i School and Conference Center, Luhallan. I think the original imprint for my Baha'iness was my great aunt Josephine. She was the first Baha'i, I think, from the 1920s or 30s. And she was a pioneer to both Cuba and Finland. She was of Finnish background. And so she planted this seed within my mother, who then, of course, carried it. And me and my siblings are all Baha'is. And frankly, it has been the anchor of my life. So I don't have the special foods that Sameena has, but we have lots of music. So I'd like to move on to our second question. Now, this has to do with the misunderstandings that you may have encountered. What do you think is the most misunderstood part of your religion? And what kinds of misunderstandings have you encountered, and how did you respond to those? So we're going to begin this with Teri this time.
Thank you, Paula. Well, I think part of a lot of the misunderstandings that certainly the Jewish people have experienced in the United States and other countries, and I'm sure the Chaldean people experienced when they came as immigrants. You know, a lot of the customs that you have are unique and special. And I think that sometimes when you join a more homogeneous population and you're coming in with your own customs and beliefs, people can misunderstand that. Certainly some of the ceremonial type apparel that people wear, just like in the Muslim faith with the hijabs, within the Jewish faith for the very religious people, I mean, they look different. And actually within Judaism, there's lots of different groups. So myself being a Reformed Jew, which is a little bit more of a progressive, not as religious Jew, is very different than somebody who's very, very religious, where the women who are married would actually shave their heads and wear like a wig to cover their head or some other head covering. And the men tend to grow the sides of their hair here to have the corners of their head adorned, and they wear a yarmulke or a kippah on their head, and oftentimes also have long hair. And you'll see they have the fringes underneath their clothes because they're wearing their talit, and those are their tzitzit. And there is a symbolic reason, the way they're knotted. They're all the religious artifacts. And then the very religious Jewish men sometimes will have these boxes that have written words from the Torah inside. So you can only imagine how strange that could look to somebody in the United States dressed like all of us, you know, just our normal clothes, just to see the differences. I think for a lot of people in a lot of cultures, it's the physical differences. And then of course there's interpretations from the Torah and the Bible that might have been misunderstood, where people might think crazy things like, do you have horns on your head because the light was shining on your head, or just other things that are very strange. If you've never met someone like that, I think you can have misunderstandings, and especially if someone looks different, I think it can kind of breed that. But what's wonderful is in situations like this, you get to know people. And when you meet people, you see the similarities, and that dispels some of the strange ideas you've heard, and also allows you to ask questions to learn, why does somebody wear the little cap on their head? So I think that the fact that we do things like this really helps dispel those kind of misunderstandings.
And helps us be friends because we share so much, really. And let's hear from Sameena next about misunderstandings in Islam, please.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Paula. Where do I begin? I feel like there's quite a lot of. So I'll pick my top two for the week. I think one one aspect I feel that's misunderstood when people don't really know what Muslims believe or who they believe in, and one thing that kind of throws them off is they don't know that, you know, Muslims believe in one God, for example, and the fact that we also believe in all of the prophets from like we believe in the Adam and Eve story and all the way down to Noah and even to Jesus. We believe that he's coming back. There is a second coming, you know, and I think those types of misunderstandings are best expressed when you have this type of a relationship. You're talking to someone, whether it's a friend or a colleague, and I know it's kind of uncomfortable because religion and politics is not what American people want to discuss off the bat, but I try to go outside of my comfort zone to tackle that, just because I feel like if I don't say something, then I don't think it's ever gonna be said. So that's one. And then the second one I thought, and it's a common one, but it's the one related to my pretty little scarf. And I actually didn't grow up with hijab at all. My parents, you know, as Teri was saying, there's a spectrum of, you know, conservative and all the way down to liberal. I don't think we were really super liberal, but we were kind of in the middle. And we dressed modestly, but the headscarf wasn't really part of anything that we grew up with. And it was, in fact, I have two daughters. So my 12-year-old one day, she was, you know, online, because now everything's available online. And she had a Chinese Muslim friend who wore a scarf. And I guess at school, they were talking a lot. And she came to me one day and was like, Mama, Mama. And I'm like, yeah. And she has this, you know, little glasses and her little scarf on. And she's like, I'm doing this. And I was like, whoa, where is this coming from? You know, and I was really, she thought about it a lot. And I think she had a lot of conversations about, you know, beauty is, you know, it's not just skin deep, it's who you are inside that matters. And she had you know, she was really, really thinking. But me as like a 40-something mom, I followed her footsteps. So after 2 weeks of her putting it on and running around town and doing that thing, I ended up, you know, wearing it myself. And my mom was kind of like, wait a minute, this is all about like covering your beauty, and you're so old now. Why are you wearing it now? That was my mom's reaction. But I mean, you know, that's kind of my journey to hijab. Thank you.
Not really old, but still beautiful.
Thank you.
Now, Dolores, we know you must have encountered misunderstandings of Buddhism, for heaven's sake, especially as you grew up as a Christian.
Yeah, and especially growing up from the Black church, you know, I really caught it culturally. I think the greatest misunderstanding has been that people think that, excuse me, Buddhists worship the statue. Okay, Buddha is not a deity either. They talk about your Buddha nature. Buddha means enlightened one. Okay, so we always say everyone's a Buddha. You just have to, you know, reveal it or discover it. And I think I'll tell a really quick story of a guy, and I think I tell it in the book here, where I had a friend who was just bound and determined to go to the Buddhist temple with me and get everybody straight, okay, and let them know that there's no way but Jesus, all right? And so anyway, I told him, you know, to come, because I think, as with everyone, what you said is that you don't really know until you participate, until you come. And so I said, well, come. And I said, and go through a service with us. I said, the statues, ignore them. I said, you know, Catholic churches have statues and stuff. So ignore the statues. I view the statues as, you know, somebody sitting with me and meditating, but, you know, half the time I don't see them. So anyway, there is a chant. I don't like chanting. I don't, okay? But something when the Black Church, the series on the Black Church was on this past week, it dawned on me on something. There's in the Black Church, they had what we call Dr. Watts. It was that old moaning and, you know, praying. So there's a song, and I'm gonna see if I can do it because my voice isn't great today. But anyway, it's like they said, Father, I stretch my hand to thee. Okay, that was the Black side. Well, there's a chant in Buddhism that's Ki Young, Chun Young, Hey Young. So it sounds so similar. So the guy, when he went with me, I mean, he was like, I guess he was like really dumbfounded. So at the, you know, during the question and answer period in tea, I'm just waiting for him to like tell him Jesus is the only way. But he didn't. He listened, and he came back and he said, you know, he says, that chant you did sounds like that old Dr. Watts. And I said, yeah, it does, you know. And so fast forward, he moved out to California. He goes to a New Thought church, and not Buddhism, but meditation is so much a part of his practice now. So I see the similarities more than the differences. And like Paula was saying, that Baha'i was, you know, her saving grace. Honestly, going inside, not dealing with what's out, but what's within, has helped me tremendously. So that's my journey.
I think that's one reason we get along so well in wisdom. We have learned to look beyond the external to the beauty within each person. And you know, dispelling misunderstandings, prejudices, and stereotypes is one of the key things that we do through this very program. I think in terms of the Baha'i faith, it isn't well widely known in the West. It actually has its roots in Persia, in Iran, and we might say it's among the newest of the world religions. And as with any new religion, it takes a while to gain legitimacy. And so sometimes people use terms like, oh, it's just a cult, like, oh, trash, right? And I know that represents a misunderstanding because the word cult actually means practice, worship, cultus. However, it's about 275 years old, and in the land of its birth, it has had particular trouble gaining a purchase. I'd say that Persian Baha'is, now Iran, are scattered throughout the world because of the persecutions they have in their own country. And this is largely a legacy of Shia Islam, which is predominant in Iran, as well as in much of Iraq and today in Yemen. And so Baha'i communities are really under the gun. I mean, they're killing people, snatching property, the kinds of things that used to happen to the Jewish community in Germany during the Nazi Third Reich. So I have to say there are misunderstandings among many Muslims in Iran in particular of the Baha'i faith, because it claims to have messengers of God after the time of Muhammad, and so they consider it heretical. So we look over that, actually. And as a teacher of comparative religion, I began seeing the inclusion of the Baha'i faith in textbooks, because I had to pick textbooks every year when I taught world religions. I began seeing inclusions of the Baha'i faith among the new religions, probably in the late 1980s, 1890s during my career. I mean, 1990s, sorry. And so it has gradually achieved legitimacy, and it has had non-governmental status with the United Nations since its beginning in 1947, and has participated widely in international forums focused on the issues that really unite us: the environment, social justice, the equality of men and women, and so forth, which are major Baha'i principles. So that's my short thing about misunderstandings. Let's move on to something closer to home. Most of us have experiences in our family. Now, sometimes those are harmonious. Sometimes there's friction based upon different belief systems and practices. So we're going to ask our third question: how has your personal faith journey impacted your family relationships, both in terms of the ideology, the practice, and socially connecting with various kinds of peoples? So this is a broad question, and I see we have quite a bit of time for this, so take a little more than you may have planned. Sameena, can we start with you, please?
Yes, of course. So I thought about this question a lot, and to see where I wanted to begin with it. Since we have some time, I wanted to actually share, and I don't usually share this aspect of my life, but I did go through a pretty difficult divorce. I'm a single mom, and my faith, which was always an important part of my life. I mean, it was, I don't want to call it a decoration, but it was more of the cultural stuff. And I think when I went through that really hard period, that dark time, I feel like I found my faith. That was the one constant, and the one thing that was stable, the one thing I mean, there were days that I just felt like I was holding on to a rope, and that was God. And I felt like that's what carried me through, and it helped, and I felt like I had to be strong because I had little kids, and I wanted to, you know, be that rock for them. But when your whole universe is going everywhere, like you know, you need that anchor. And I felt that my journey to God began during a really difficult phase of my life. And when I let that in, and when that light sort of came into my life, I felt like a lot of things changed. I felt like my relationships with even my extended family or my own children, they became deeper. And I know that some of the teachings, all of your beautiful religions teach this. You're related by blood to people, but you also have a family of believers. And I felt like that also happened. I was living in Chicago. We actually had this kind of obscenely large basement, and someone had called me up one day and asked if they could use it for a gathering. It was a religious gathering, and I didn't know anything, and I said sure, and we let people in, and it just, and then after that my phone was ringing off the hook, and there were gatherings after. They started out small, like 20 people, 25, 30, 50. They went up to like 100, and I kid you not, I brought a prop also. I have like this, I got, someone gifted this to me. It's like a incense burner where you burn wood, and the whole room, like it would just be this beautiful, fragrant, smoky place. And then people would come and they would just sing. And they would sing for like hours, like an hour, 2 hours. They would sing in Arabic. They would sing in Urdu or Persian or English. And they're just all singing about God and loving God. And I feel like that was just, it was a gift in my life. And it's just a beautiful period. And it came out of hardship. And I know another metaphor is, you know, when you put a diamond, it comes out like a coal, right? Like it's usually like when you harvest it, and then it goes through like a lot of pressure and a lot of like struggle, and then you come out with this like lovely sparkling mineral. And I think that that's a metaphor for all of us. I think even what we're seeing in Dallas right now, I'm sorry to segue, but you're seeing a lot of ugliness and tragedy, but you're also seeing a lot of beauty, the way people are sharing and caring and just going out of their way to help each other. And so that's what I feel like the message is for humanity.
Beautiful story, Sameena. I haven't heard you talk about this before. There's always new things to learn about your sisters in faith. Let's move to Dolores now and find out about your family background and how that has been interacting with your faith community then and now, of course.
Yeah, with family and even the people in the church that at first did not understand. I think there's
You're breaking up. Would you repeat what you just said?
Of some sort
Would you
about
repeat what you just said?
Understanding what Buddhists. Okay, I will. Okay, and my better says my internet is unstable. I apologize. I so apologize. Okay now. Okay, good. Okay. Like I said, with the people that I was a part of, even in the church, and I'm still, I still associate former church members and so forth, and I'm everybody's church. So, but they're curious about Buddhism, and so I haven't really run into difficulty, and people have come. And the one thing in the practice, at least at the temple I go to, they teach you. They don't expect you to ever come back, okay? But they try to tell you or teach you when you do go the practice so that you can take it with you, how to breathe, how to sit, how to try to focus, and what happens when it doesn't happen, and not to be hard on yourself, etc. And I find now, as time goes on, and with all of our issues going on in the world, as Sameena mentioned, I see that people are wanting to slow down, and they're using that practice. Oddly enough, it's like I have people call, "Will you tell me how to meditate? I want to sit and meditate." So I will. I'll get on Zoom and like, okay, and then I show them, like I was telling you about the chant and the old Negro spiritual. It's something I noticed and Sameena maybe. Am I breaking up? I'm breaking. Is it better? Okay. Okay, good. So anyway, you know how Sameena, when Muslims, how you put your right hand on your left. Well, we have the same thing, only it's a mudra, like that. And then in the and then like with the Muslims, you know how you go down on your knees. We go right hand, left hand, forehead. Okay. Muslims do the same. And then only difference is we lift our hands, okay? And then left hand, right hand, we come back and we stand up, okay? But then you go back into that position. And so when you see the similarities, consequently, we see a lot of Muslims in our place. We see a lot of Jewish people in our place. We see a lot of Catholics. So people, even the Catholics relate to the statues, to the chanting. I know the Muslims relate to the bowing, the prostrations, and it feels so good. So I think when people come into the temple in the quiet and the serenity, I think that's what people come to. So I have really been able to, and we're not trying to convert anybody. We're not trying to change your mind about your beliefs. We try to give you something that you can take and add to your practice. So that's the other side. So actually, it's been pretty good.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dolores. Let's move to Teri and find out, because I know Judaism is very much a religion of the home. So tell us how that has played into your life, please.
Sure. Yeah. As I said, with Jewish culture in particular, a lot of it is based with gatherings, mainly in the kitchen. We're always in the kitchen making fried potato pancakes, or like I said, celebrating or grieving together. And when my great-grandparents came over from Russia and Poland, they didn't speak English, and they were very, very religious. Like I said, more of that immigrant status, where they're coming to a new world, very tight in their traditions, very tight in their communities. Over the years and through our generations as a family, we've expanded. And so we've adapted to the American culture, and we've also recognized that people a lot of times might not choose to be as religious. So in my family, when my mom and her sisters were growing up, they did keep a kosher home. So they did not mix the milk and the meat. So they had different plates. And they had some of the other customs where foods they didn't eat. When my great-grandparents passed away, my mom's parents, my grandparents, decided that wasn't really for them. They were Americans, and though they liked being Jewish, they were more socially Jewish. So growing up in that household, they really weren't that religion. When I was going to school, my parents decided to put me in a conservative education, so I was right down the middle, so that I could decide, do I want to get more religious? Do I want to get less religious? My husband and I chose to do the same thing for our children. So as I mentioned, we've all been through the ritual rites of being bar mitzvahed. So in my family, obviously I was bat mitzvahed, and my husband was bar mitzvahed, and our kids were bat mitzvahed. My husband and I had the same bar bat mitzvah date, the same day, the same year, which is very unusual. I mean, think about an event in your life that happens once, the coincidence. We call it being b'shared, being meant to be. So we feel that there was like a religious connection for us to get married because of that and other reasons. And we raised our kids that way. And what's really lovely now is my children and I all do Shabbat services, especially during the pandemic. Like we used to sometimes go to temple, but now it's so easy to go to temple. I mean, there's so many downsides to the COVID pandemic, but the one positive side is temple comes to us. So what we'll do is, today's Shabbat. So I actually taped my service. So after this, I'm going to watch my service. I'm taping my service. But what I'll do some week is I'll say to my girls, what service are you going to watch? And we'll try to be watching the same service at the same time at the same temple. I belong to Temple Shir Shalom, but I'm also very affiliated with Song and Spirit Institute for Peace, which is an interfaith group that has both Catholicism and Judaism intermixed. I just think it's a wonderful group. So what I'll usually do is I'll go to their service first, then I'll slide onto Shir Shalom, and my daughters oftentimes will slide onto Shir Shalom with me. And my youngest does the college Hillel service, and my oldest sometimes will do in New York, like maybe Rameh Mu service. But we're all on, so we're hearing the same Bible portions, the same Torah portions, no matter where we are. We're singing the same songs, maybe slightly different melodies. And so it's very spiritual for us. And I feel the most connected really to my Judaism that I have in a long time. And person again when it's available, but I hope I'll still be able to do some of the online, because like I said, it's just so accessible. It's just nice. And when I haven't had the kind of trauma that Sameena had. I've been very fortunate, but I did have a time in my life where there's some bad things were going on through my work, and thank God it's so much better now, but I was very troubled. And I was my rabbi. I made an appointment with my rabbi, and we just sat down and talked, and it really helped. To have that objective opinion and have someone believe in you, and I got through it. And I got through it stronger. But I just really appreciate it. I didn't want to burden my family with it because it was already so stressful. And I didn't want my husband and my kids to have more worries or know how worried I was. But I really appreciate my faith. And I do agree with Sameena, especially in good and in bad times. It's really nice to be able to lean on that and have something to believe in. So I'm very happy. I'm in a very good place with my Judaism.
Great. Thank you. I love Sameena's image of the rope that you cling to. Yeah. Well, as a Baha'i, I think I will talk about family from two perspectives. The family I grew up in, we were a Baha'i family. That is, we said our prayers morning and eve. We had feasts, the 19-day celebration of worship in our household. And we practice consultation, which I think is a really unique feature of Baha'i because we have no clergy. So it's kind of like a do-it-yourself faith. Everybody is their own practitioner. So consultation is, you might say, a conference in the attitude and atmosphere of love. And our family used it to plan vacations, to plan who would give up their room. It was always me when grandma visits. We moved into our house that my father designed and it was not yet finished. So who was going to do what jobs? And I mean, it taught us kids, we each had an equal voice, the three of us, myself, Leah, and Tony. We got respect from our parents in this context. We learned how to work in groups, to consult with one another. And of course, it was always done with prayers as well. I think another impact on my family was that I saw my parents in an egalitarian relationship. There was no male domination. There was an equal give and take. I also was very familiar with the equality of women and men in the practice of my community, no matter where I was, whether I was in my home or in a small Baha'i community. So, and then we attended Llewellyn Baha'i School. That was really the beginnings of my education as a Baha'i, how I learned about the Baha'i faith. We had classes, and then we had, of course, it was like summer camp, only we had classes in the morning, and then we played ping pong and, you know, did hikes and stuff and swims and stuff in the afternoon and so forth. So that was really my training. I did that for 5 years straight from age 10 through 15. So by the time I got to be 15, which is the year of maturity for Baha'is, I thought, I want to be a Baha'i. And so I signed my declaration card and I was received in my Baha'i community of Kokomo, Indiana. And then I knew who I was. It gave me a strong sense of identity. I think that's so important for young people growing up. And then as a married, I got married at 20 and my husband wasn't a Baha'i, but I realized how important religion was to my life. So I began practicing some Lutheranism with him. And I had to walk a kind of tightrope here. How much engagement with Baha'i do I afford myself? Because of course I wanted to do as much as I could, but I didn't want to alienate him. And this became problematic in later years and we divorced. We did not have that spiritual foundation, which Baha'is are taught is really the basis of marriage. We had received the Baha'i ceremony and, you know, each set of parents agreed that we could marry. Those were two things you had to do. So that was unfortunate, but I realized, just similar to Sameena, after that crisis, my faith and my faith community really held me together. It was like an anchor, it really was. So that's just some of my Baha'i experience. Are we nearing the end of our time period here? You know, we haven't talked about beliefs at all. Would you notice that, folks? We've been talking about how our faiths are lived. Could you just detail a couple basic beliefs? And this is the area from teaching religions, I know this, where people sometimes get at odds. For the Baha'is, it's the oneness of God, the oneness of religion. We see religion as constantly unfolding in human history, and the oneness of humanity, which I'm glad through COVID we're realizing really well. So, Sameena, do you have a couple just things you could share with basic ideas of Islam?
I think same, just like Baha'is, we believe in one God. We do believe, I mentioned the prophets, and then the seal of the prophet being the Prophet Muhammad as the last messenger of God. And then really the belief in the afterlife, after you die, there is an accounting, heaven and hell. And that really, I think, helps to explain why bad things happen to good people and, human suffering, because it's not over here. Like, there's going to be this ultimate, justice and hopefully mercy from God, and everything is going to get sorted out. So it's that, I think those are like the main core tenets.
Yeah. Dolores.
Okay. I think in Buddhism, and you have sects of Buddhism, and they believe various things, but I'm Mahayana sect, and Zen is we're commonly known. So there's no real dogma, but there is the focus is the here and now. We say you just have this breath. The next breath isn't promised to you. I only have this moment, and there is a forever now occurring. So what I do in this moment affects the very next. So if I just focus and clean up this moment, then I will have corrected the past and the present. So we focus on the now. And I've had 3 Dharma names. My first one was Kamita. My second one was, and that means wise moment. Second Dharma name was Hagwan, and that meant carrying the crown of wisdom. And my current Dharma name is Shiwal, means new moon mind. I love the moon. I don't know how the monks figure that out, but it's about doing good on the planet. And just I mean, if I do good to you, there's nothing I can do to you or anybody on this planet that does not affect me. So we're one. So again, the oneness of all humanity, the oneness of all things, all sentient beings are one. The earth is one, the heavens are one. And if we start moving in that, and I think that's the lesson of COVID. I think that's the lesson of the universe or the weather acting the way it is because it's forcing us to be together. It's forcing us to show our love. And like Sameena was saying, look at the beauty actually that's coming out of this. So it's about living your faith now, and they don't worry as much about the hereafter. It's like if you do it now, the hereafter is taken care of.
Care of itself.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, yeah, a little time left. Teri, please.
Okay, sure. Thank you. So a similarity between what Dolores just said with Judaism is we have something called Tikkun Olam, and that's called repairing the world. And we have a belief that it is our job to repair the world, not just environmentally, which is, of course, very important, especially now, but to help others, to heal, to do community service, to help the other is our obligation, not a choice. It's actually in our doctrine. And what's very interesting, if you look at the Abrahamic religions, so you basically have Judaism, which is the Torah or the Old Testament. Then you have the New Testament, the Bible. Then you have the Quran, or the Latter-day Saints have the Book of Mormon. So if you look at those different groups within the Abrahamic religions, they all start with the same base. So we all should have a lot in common and get along because we all start with the same religion. We believe in the same things. And then what's nice about the other religions, although I'm very happy with my own religion, is they add on good kindnesses. Like I've learned more about Islam, not to talk about your religion, Sameena, but it's a religion of peace. And it's such a beautiful religion. And then, when you get into the Christian religions, they talk about helping the poor and doing it to others. And of course, with Baha'is, you really accept all of our religions. It's like the world religion. So if you think about it, I realize with Buddhism, that's a different area, but you also do have the Christian background, but they all the religions really say, be a good person, be an honest person, be a kind person, be supportive, help others, help the poor, be a teacher. And I think that these are just beautiful tenets. And I think that even if you're not very religious, if you live your life doing good for the world and healing the world and caring about the world and others, how can you go wrong? I mean, it's just religion really, if it's done the way it's supposed to be, it's just so beautiful.
Wonderful. Well, you've heard 4 stories tonight. I'd like to remind you that there are 52 stories in our book, Friendship and Faith, The Wisdom of Women Creating Alliances for Peace. And I think we all try to practice tikkun olam, repairing the world. That's why we're here tonight. That's why we urge you to investigate other faiths, to embrace our similarities, to let the differences fall away. And we think that should happen if you become friends first.
And
So-
I just want to say one thing, if it's okay, Paula.
Sure.
She's like, sure, Teri, go. We're so honored to be invited by the Chaldean Cultural Center. And, you know, West Bloomfield, where some of us live, but I know where you're located over in Shenandoah, has luckily such wonderful diversity. And I know within the Jewish community and the Chaldean community, we share so many services, ideas, even newspapers print together. And we would so love and welcome our Chaldean sisters to come even just to our events or be members, be a part of Wisdom. You know, we would just feel that you would bring such a beautiful richness to our organization. And I just would like to say, anyone who's watching us and thinking like, I like that, reach out to us. We would love to get to know you better and invite you to be a part of all the wonderful fun we do. And we do so many different things. Sameena is our programming guru, and she does so many community service programs. And we really try to reach out to each other and be sisters to each other and really do good work together. So it's a beautiful group of friends doing good and, you know, making room for peace. And we hope that you'll consider joining us.
Thank you, Teri. That's
Teri is our current president.
as a member of Wisdom, I can say that you guys have so totally embraced me. And each time that I've gathered in any of our outings or at your house, it's been really such a sacred and beautiful experience. And I have felt a sisterhood with you guys. And so everything that Teri just said is really true. I even always feel like I wish there was more opportunities for us to connect. And I really appreciate that you've taken the time to come and share your beautiful stories. Every one of you, each time that you're sharing a story, I felt like, yes, Teri, we also speak Aramaic and we love food and live in the kitchen. Yes, Sameena, that immigration experience and hushing everybody so we can get work done in the kitchen. Yes, Dolores, Geshe Michael Roach, I've been following him for a long time, a Buddhist. So I'm a Christian and I learned so much from Buddhism. And Paula, before I met you, I didn't know anything about the Baha'i religion. So I am so happy that you taught me something new. So I'm just like, this is so exciting. I mean, we can all relate and we can all learn. So thank you guys so much for this opportunity. And I really do hope that once everything goes back to normal, that you can visit us at the Chaldean Cultural Center. Thank you. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, for inviting us. We enjoyed each other and yourself.
Thank you, guys. You have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
night, everybody. Thank you
You
for
too.
watching, everyone. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.